Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, freedom for Navy SEAL accused of war crimes. The judge in the Eddie Gallagher case grants his release as he awaits trial. And a new tariff threat from President Trump, this time targets Mexico. Why the president hopes it will help reduce the number of asylum seekers.
There are people who trying their best just to get by, and it makes it much more difficult when you have to worry about someone clamping down on you or taking what little you have left.
Living in vehicles. KPBS checks in with people trying to navigate San Diego's new ban. And Disneyland welcomes Star Wars fans to the new Galaxy's Edge. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, May 31st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A Navy SEAL accused of war crimes is a free man. Eddie Gallagher walked out of his hearing at Naval Base San Diego. His release last night was unexpected. The judge said he released him from military custody after prosecutors used technology to track emails. Gallagher's wife spoke about the decision.
I just feel like it's just a huge step in the right direction, and I'm just so thankful. Thank God that we're here at this moment, and that we know that we've only grown stronger through this. Our marriage, everything. I don't know, it's just been a really surreal moment. I didn't anticipate it at all.
Gallagher did not speak to the media. He's accused of murdering a prisoner in Iraq. Today, his lawyers continued their push to have the case dismissed. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has an update on where things stand now. Steve, what can you tell us?
So, Ebony, we're outside the courtroom here on Naval Base San Diego, where the hearing just wrapped up today. On the table today is a motion to dismiss the prosecutors in this case or dismiss the case entirely. The issue here is these email trackers placed on software in emails sent to defense attorneys and a reporter. They're trying to find the source of hundreds of pages of leaked documents. The defense has called this spying. The judge found that it did violate Eddie Gallagher's rights, and that's why they ordered him released yesterday pre-trial. Now, his defense attorney said out here that it's not really a leak investigation in their minds, but an attempt to disrupt the defense. Here's his attorney, Tim Palatori.
They installed web tracking beacons onto emails so that they can monitor defense attorneys' communications. They say that they were looking for leaks, but they didn't take any real investigative steps to look where the leaks actually came from, which, if you look at what was leaked, it wasn't the defense. We don't leak things that are partisan, pushing the prosecution's narrative. So they took what started out as a leak investigation, instead tried to weaponize it against us, and that's where we are.
One of Gallagher's other outside attorneys, Mark Mukasik, said he was on the case only 2 minutes before he was sent one of these emails with a tracker on it. Now, the prosecutor said in court that they don't think this rises to the level of actually throwing out the case. They cite that no privileged information was exchanged. Now, Judge Root took all of this under advisement. Again, yesterday he allowed Eddie Gallagher to go home. He's been in custody since September 18th. So Judge Root could rule any time on this. Right now, the case is scheduled to begin on June 10th, so shortly. Now, keep in mind, all of this is preliminary. 7 SEALs are scheduled to testify in this case, and this is a murder trial stemming from a 2017 act in Mosul, Iraq. He's accused of killing a teenage ISIS fighter in his custody, as well as using his sniper rifle to kill other 2 civilians. Reporting from Naval Base San Diego, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thanks, Steve. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is reacting to new tariffs on Mexico. In a tweet this afternoon, Faulconer said increased tariffs on Mexico are a tax on San Diego's border economy. This proposal undermines the USMCA trade deal the administration is working to pass. I strongly oppose tariffs that would hurt families and businesses whose way of life rely on fair and free trade. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more on the reaction to the tariffs.
News of the tariffs broke through a series of presidential tweets. Mr. Trump saying that a 5% tariff will be imposed on June 10th on all goods coming into our country from Mexico until such time as illegal immigrants coming through Mexico into our country stop.
Las autoridades de Estados Unidos.
In Mexico City, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said his country wanted to work with the U.S. to find a solution, but he also said the use of coercive measures doesn't lead to anything good.
Tariffs on imports from Mexico will be the most damaging for us.
Here in San Diego, reaction from the business community was swift and sharp.
Opposing tariffs, the trade policy to address migratory issues is not the solution. You're mixing two very different issues.
The president's proposal increases the initial 5% tariff by 5% every month until the administration decides that Mexico is doing what it should to stop Central Americans and other illegal migrants from moving through its territory. Paola Avila says those tariffs will cost all of us, but she says the effects here in San Diego will be especially harsh. The region imports $4 billion a year worth of goods just from Baja California.
That will result in $17 million for 1 month under the 5%.
Without a resolution, that $17 million in tariffs would balloon to $34 million in July and so forth until topping out at a 25% tariff in October. And Avila says the tariffs won't solve the issue of illegal immigration.
It's certainly not going to address it. It's going to worsen it. If you're hurting the economy of Mexico, our number one neighbor, and the country, the people there, you could actually increase migratory patterns from Mexico, not just Central America now.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
It's now illegal to live out of your vehicle in San Diego. The law was passed with the idea that people can go to city-funded safe parking lots to sleep overnight. But KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says while some people are looking to get out of their vehicles, others aren't.
Paul Grasso has been living out of his van for the last year in San Diego.
It's a lifestyle for some. Some choose it, but I'm just traveling and I got kind of stuck in this for a little bit. I can't afford rent.
Grasso sleeps in the Ocean Beach area and says he cannot afford renting a place on his disability income.
You live on $1,000 a month and you can't even rent a one-bedroom for $1,000 a month. So what are you to do?
He says living out of a van is not easy.
You're trying to get by on everything and trying to cook in your vehicle and not go out to eat every time, trying to stay healthy, which is very difficult.
After San Diego passed an ordinance barring people from sleeping in their vehicles overnight and anytime near homes or schools, Grasso says some residents have been putting notices on his car.
This means that the entire Dog Beach parking lot is no longer parking areas at all times if you are living in your vehicle. So I'm not allowed in Dog Beach anymore because I live in my vehicle.
You can't camp in non-camping areas, just like you don't want somebody living in your driveway. For health, safety, all kinds of reasons.
Denny Knox is executive director of Ocean Beach Main Street, which represents more than 500 businesses in OB.
We're a generous community, we're kind of laid back, and I feel maybe we've been taken advantage of.
If you go to Ocean Beach, you'll see many people living out of their vehicles. Knox is supportive of the new law and hopes it will drive campers out of town.
It brought a really rough element to town, which we didn't appreciate, and we're just not a campground.
When the city council approved the law, it was done with the idea that the city would provide lots for people to park and sleep overnight. The lots are run by Jewish Family Service and have case managers working to get people into housing.
You can target those services for those spots. It makes perfect sense because when everybody's spread out all over the place, how do you get services to all these people? It's unmanageable, which we've seen.
but not everyone wants to leave their vehicles.
It's comfortable, you know, it's not a real extravagant, you know, but we got, like I said, we have solar.
Some people like John Salerno are just looking for a place to park and sleep in their home on wheels.
It's a 1999, it's 35 feet.
Salerno lives out of his RV by choice.
I just retired, I'm 65, and we elected, instead of paying rent, you know, to try to save some money. I had a house, I sold the house, I needed the equity money, you know, because I'm not getting as much as I thought I was going to get in my Social Security.
Normally, parking his 35-footer isn't a problem. Salerno says he pays to sleep at an RV park, but can't stay there all the time.
I do have a membership, but we stay 3 weeks out of the month, but 1 week out of the month, we have to move because of the rules pertaining to that membership.
That means 1 week out of every month, Salerno has to find other places to park and sleep.
I try to stay out of the people's way. I don't like to hear, you know, and hinder anybody's view of their ocean or whatever they think they were parking out and hindering their views or whatever. So we try to stay out of residential neighborhoods so we don't bother them. So that's why I'm in a secluded place here.
He feels the new law is not fair.
They've isolated us and they've picked us out. I think it's kind of discriminatory.
Salerno thinks if people are following other laws, they should be able to park and sleep on public streets.
You got it registered. You're not being a hindrance. You're not being a nuisance. Okay, you have a right and a privilege you've earned.
Grasso and Ocean Beach agrees.
There are people who trying their best just to get by. And it makes it much more difficult when you have to worry about someone clamping down on you or taking what little you have left.
The San Diego Police Department says they have not started ticketing people under the new law, but will soon. Jewish Family Service is set to open its safe parking lot in Mission Valley within the next few weeks. It will be able to accommodate both cars and RVs. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The mountain lion that was killed this week by wildlife officers is the same one that attacked a 4-year-old boy. The Department of Fish and Wildlife says DNA testing confirms the match. The boy was attacked Monday at the Los Penasquitos Canyon Preserve. Officers later found a mountain lion in the area. They say they killed it because it did not show fear of humans. The boy has been released from the hospital in good condition. Data shows sexual harassment and assault are prevalent in California. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani has the findings.
Researchers at UC San Diego's Center on Gender Equity and Health have been busy crunching numbers. They've been studying the national rate of sexual harassment and assault for both men and women, and they took a closer look at the state of California. They found 5% more women in California reported being sexually harassed than the national average. And for men, that figure was 10%. Dr. Anita Raj is the center's director, who led the study of about 500 respondents.
Me Too movement, it didn't start, but it really gained recognition through what was happening in Hollywood. And so we thought that that was going to be a really important state through which we could kind of have a lens of seeing what are things looking like now after the Me Too movement has taken root.
The survey was for this year. Raj says past national surveys had already shown higher rates of harassment on the West Coast. The higher rates could be due to greater awareness, and because California has several major cities where street harassment often happens. In the state survey, foreign-born men in particular reported more events than others did.
There's been a lot of rhetoric about certain populations being more likely to commit certain kinds of crimes. I think this report comes very much in the face of that and says that's not the reality, and in fact, what we see instead is a greater vulnerability for immigrant men who are in the country.
Raj says the center is hoping to do more surveys with the migrant population in California to follow up. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
Starting today, Disneyland guests can explore a whole new world. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is one of the largest park expansions in Walt Disney's history. We're going to discuss what this will mean for the already hugely popular attraction as part of our Friday Business Report. And joining us now is Dr. George Belch with the SDSU Fowler College of Business. Welcome.
Thank you.
So what will be the impact of this new attraction?
Well, anytime a theme park like Disney adds a new attraction, it's a major event. Clearly, it's going to increase attendance. It's going to bring in new people. But this one is particularly significant because, first of all, it's probably the largest investment Disney's ever made in expanding the park. If you go back to 2012, they paid $4 billion to Lucasfilms for the rights to the Star Wars character. And now it's time to get the return on investment for that big expenditure that they made. And clearly Galaxy's Edge is going to be the way to do so. I mean, this is a new attraction that's almost a park within a park. It's going to cater to the Star Wars fanatics, of which there are many. And it is just going to be a really unique attraction. They're going to be modifying the business model a little bit. They're going to be selling $200 lightsaber swords. They're going to be selling $6,000 stormtrooper outfits. They're going to serve alcohol for the first time in a Disney park. They're going to have a little Oga Cantina where they have 10 already mixed drinks. It's estimated that about 30 to 40% of their revenue will come from food and merchandise, and that's really, really significant. So what we see here is Disney has a lot riding on this. And I think that you're going to see this bring in really a new market segment in some ways to the traditional Disney customer.
So moving on, this week the California State Assembly has banned the sale of fur. How big of an impact would this be for the industry?
If you work in the fur industry, it's a very big factor, but I don't think we should be surprised by this because this has been going on and building for a long, long time, evolving, if you will. You know, the fur industry really has not been regulated, but PETA and other animal rights groups have been after them for a long, long time. They're very concerned about the conditions, the confinement of the animals, the way they are used to generate fur and the products. And if you go back, in international countries, they've already banned fur. There was a fur ban in West Hollywood in 2011, in Berkeley in 2017, San Francisco same year. Last year, Los Angeles City Council passed laws banning fur sales. So we should not be surprised by this at all. Secondly, a lot of the manufacturers, fashion companies, the Gucci's, the Chanel's, the Armani's, they've already pledged not to sell fur products. The industry, of course, is upset. Their argument is, you're picking on us. Their argument is, let us regulate ourselves. You're going to create a black market for fur, and then the conditions could perhaps even be worse. But I just don't think this is going to change. I think you're going to see the bans continue. A lot of people say it's pretty much an outdated product. Interestingly enough, Gallup did a survey last year, and they found that 60% of the people they surveyed still thought it was okay to wear fur products, which is somewhat inconsistent with the trend and the movement that we're seeing. But I think this ban will stick.
And finally, Morgan Stanley, one of the nation's largest investment banks, says that we should be on recession watch, basing this on how the bond market is performing. Can you tell me, is a recession inevitable? What other areas should we be watching closely?
There are other signs. Durable manufacturing is down. The business sector, the healthcare sector is down. Inventories are up. These are signs. If you look globally, Europe, other international markets are not in recession, but their growth is clearly slowed. But perhaps the big thing right now is the trade wars. Yesterday, President Trump added Mexico to the tariff list. We already have the battle going on with China. And what happens here is the markets hate uncertainty. They hate volatility. But until we get the tariff issue and the trade war issue resolved, we're not going to have any real clear picture of where the economy is going. We've had a really great run. I mean, we've had economic growth for more than 10 years. President Trump has been predicting over 3% GDP growth. I don't think that's going to happen. We did hit it last quarter, but the estimates this year are probably more like 2.3%. And I don't see the economy really taking off. I don't see it just falling off a cliff either. It is possible that we could see a recession. I mean, I think just continuing a really high level of economic growth is very difficult. But we have very low levels of unemployment. The stock market, we have to remember, is close to record highs. We've had a really great run, and to see some type of pullback, some adjustment would not be surprising. I think once we get clarity over the tariffs and the trade wars, we're going to have a better idea of where the economy is going. So we're going to have to wait and see, and I think that the economists will probably continue to debate this one.
That wraps up our Friday Business Report. Okay. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Reports of hate crimes rise, but prosecuting the cases is tough. Development plans abound in fire-prone areas, and Sandag's new leader proposes major changes for transportation. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
This weekend's movie selections includes Godzilla and an Elton John biopic. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando has these recommendations.
There's lots to choose from this weekend, but let's start with the big guy who can't be ignored.
Oh my God, Zilla.
King of the Monsters improves on the previous U.S. Godzilla in terms of screen time for the monsters and allowing them to really go at it.
They're everywhere, battling for dominance, a rival alpha to Godzilla.
The American films have extravagant CGI effects that are beautiful, but which lack the charm of the Japanese Godzilla films. Plus, the humans in King of the Monsters have too much control over the story and the monsters, because Americans seem unable to imagine anything they cannot defeat or control. But giant monsters are always a blast, and I love the impressive scale of these awesome creatures. Rocketman looks to the life of Elton John. The film doesn't seek to present a perfectly lip-synced impersonation of the rock star, but rather to find creative ways to show how the famous songs reflect the singer's real life. Rocketman has the flamboyance and audacity to fit its subject. Now for a film on a smaller scale, The Souvenir, which stars Honor Swinton Byrne, Tilda's talented daughter. The film is masterfully crafted by director Joanna Hogg, and it examines both a turbulent relationship and the nature of film itself. But you may find Swinton Byrne's character infuriating in terms of her romantic choices.
Don't be worthy, be arrogant.
But you have lots to choose from, so enjoy the diversity. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
It's time for Krispy Kreme cheeseburgers and mini donuts. The San Diego County Fair is back. KPBS arts editor Nina Guerin has the preview and tells us about other things happening around town this weekend.
Summer doesn't officially begin until June, but around here, we mark the start of the season with the opening of the San Diego County Fair. This year's fair theme is awesome, inspired by The Wizard of Oz. A yellow brick road will lead you to all your fair favorites: fried food, farm animals, carnival rides, and art exhibits. As far as concerts, you'll get a mix of pop, country, and Latin music with standouts that include Pitbull, Lindsey Stirling, Smokey Robinson, and Los Tigres del Norte. Did you know there's a new adaptation of Fiddler on the Roof? But don't worry, it still has everything that's made the musical so beloved since 1964. Broadway San Diego brings this updated story of Tevye, the poor milkman trying to hold together traditions in the face of a changing world. There's an extra level of resonance about the Jewish experience in this version, thanks to a framing device that happens at the very beginning and the very end of the show, but no spoilers here. The main reason to see it, though, is the updated choreography. Instead of Jerome Robbins' ballet-inspired moves, these dancers feel more authentic and gritty, as if they truly are expressing the emotions of a Russian shtetl in 1905. Finally, the Mainly Mozart Festival opens this weekend with Music and the Mind, an event that looks at music through the lens of autism. Throughout the weekend, musicians, researchers, doctors, and therapists will gather to explore the role that music plays in the brain. It will feature a speech by autism advocate Temple Grandin and a concert by blind pianist Derek Paravicini, who also has autism. The Mainly Mozart Festival Orchestra continues throughout June with concerts by internationally renowned musicians and ensembles, including Israel Philharmonic concertmaster David Rudzinski. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
People heading to the fair this weekend should grab sun protection. The rays are expected to continue shining through the weekend. Dajia Swad has details in tonight's forecast.
As we continue through Friday, we're noticing clouds in place here. That's been the trend. Some low clouds during the night and the early morning hours. We're cooling down to 60 in San Diego and a low of 55 for Oceanside. Your overnight low in Borrego Springs in the mid-60s and cooling down to 47 in Mount Laguna with partly cloudy conditions. Now, moving into Saturday, our forecast pretty much remaining the same here. Cool at the coast with some low clouds into Southern California. Warm as you head further inland and high pressure out towards Nevada, as well as into Utah. Now, there will still be the chance for some instability. We'll get to that in just a second, but overall, it's a dry forecast for San Diego County. High of 68 in Oceanside as well as San Diego for tomorrow. Once again, some low clouds through the morning. They burn off. We'll get some sun into San Diego. Also looking at a dry forecast and sun to be thriving for Borrego Springs with a high of 93, topping off at 63 in Mount Laguna for tomorrow. And as we talk about our overall pattern here, we start to notice a ridge building into the north, so into portions of Washington and Oregon. Warm air building. We're not going to be too bad ourselves, remaining near seasonable. What we are seeing is our low pressure dropping down to the south, bringing in some instability back into portions of the Sierras through Utah as well as Nevada, even out towards Idaho. But we're not seeing the need for the umbrella at the coast, inland, nor into the mountains or deserts for the next several days. Temperatures at the coast nearly near average, with highs in the upper 60s through Mondays. We'll be topping off at 70 on Tuesday and 71 on Wednesday. Then as we head inland, we're in the 70s for much of your extended forecast. Lower 70s through the weekend with low clouds potentially moving in, burning off throughout the afternoon, and then plenty of sun as we head into the early week. And by Wednesday, nearing a high of 80 degrees. In the 90s out to the deserts is where we have the heat and the sunshine. A bit more cloud cover for Saturday, but plenty of sun to come for Sunday. Well, remember, if you plan to be out in the desert areas, just stay hydrated and put on that sunscreen. By Wednesday, you're looking at a high forecasted at 99 degrees. And into the mountains, the elevation playing a role here, definitely sitting cool for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and feeling cool for Tuesday as well, but with dry conditions on tap. We'll be topping off in the 70s by Wednesday, so there's a bit of a warm-up. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Jaji Aswad. Back to you.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.